Welcome back to the Dallas Dreamhack Regional Championships. I am Niall Joan Rivers. I am joined in the booth today by Mason Clark. Mason, we saw some incredible games in round one, but we are here at I guess this is actually round, 11 of the regional championship? And we are going to be seeing a match between Jesse Pilland on Bant Toxic versus Alan Wu on Temur Analyst. What do you think of these decks?
Yeah, so we've seen Alan Wu a couple times in our feature material. Started off 7-0 yesterday, got to the 8-0, lost to Jack our Soul undefeated as we're going into round number 11 here, and then won the next round. So Alan's still alive. The Temur Analyst deck is incredibly powerful. It is like one of the definite litmus tests of the format. If we could pull it up on screen so the players can see it here, this deck just tries to put a bunch of lands into play and then overwhelm you, eventually set up the virtue to make triple your mana and then eventually just fireball your opponent. This deck, very powerful, very traditional. Now, unfortunately, this deck does have some problems, and that can be hyper-aggressive decks that do sticky damage. And what I mean by sticky damage is toxic, infect, Nile. Normally, Ill-Timed Explosion, you play against Convoke, you're at like 9-ish life. It doesn't really matter. Your lands, like the Maestro's Theater, gain you life, so you can actually recuperate. Playing against Bant Toxic this round, the damage that happens early to Alan, the actual damage is going to happen, but the toxic is going to stick around here. So as we look at Jesse's deck, one of the things we're going to notice is, yes, cards like Ill-Timed Explosion are still one of the most important things that we can have. Fires of Victory is still one of the most important things we can have, but we need to win in a much more timely way than we do against a deck like Boros Convoke.
Yeah, and I think we are ready to get straight into this match. I'm excited to see how this goes down, as we've got Jesse on the left here with the Bant Toxic and Alan on our right with Temur Analyst. It looks like our players have already resolved their mulligans and are ready to start. It looks like Jesse is on the play, which, seems to me like that's got to be pretty huge for the Bant Toxic deck.
Yeah, it is massive. Play draw is always something that comes up in these sort of games, but when you're a beat downy deck, getting on the play typically means you're going to get one more attack in. And I guess decks like Allen's that have a bunch of essentially tap lands, with things like the Riveteer Outlook here, it means you're going to get in maybe even an extra attack because they're not going to play on curve as well as they would like to.
Right. So going back over to Jesse, and we're going to see Skrelv's Hive, the Dream turn 2, as we attack with the Crawling Chorus, get some of that sticky damage that you were talking about, and pass back over to Alan.
Yeah, and, that Skrelv's Hive, we see the Ill-Timed Explosion in hand for Alan, which is going to clean the board up, but the Hive will repeatedly put a no threat into play over and over and over, and that's going to put Wu on the back foot.
Yeah, and looks like we are going to see the Garenbrig Growth side of the Virtue, which is going to get back that Outlook from the graveyard to our hand. As we go to Jesse's turn, and he's going to make his might, attack with the Chorus. And we're seeing the Serum Snare there. Oh, the Rot Priest. Very powerful creature for the Bant Toxic deck.
Yeah, Rot Priest is a card that when players first saw it, they thought it might even go as far back as, Modern, even potentially Legacy. And it's definitely a big player in this standard deck. We see Alan asking, hey, what's corrupted again? And Jesse reminds him it's 3, in fact. But if you target, one of Jesse's creatures, it's going to do 1 toxic to you. Now, Jesse can even combine this with Marsh's Swirling Mist in his own deck to kind of burst shot you on infect damage. So we might see Jesse, doesn't have it now, but if he draws one for turn, could attack Alan down to 5. Maybe Alan tries the Ill-Timed Explosion, and then we save all our creatures from combat, deal 2 to 3 infect damage, and attack for lethal on the next turn.
Yeah, and we did see an Experimental Augury in Jesse's hand, which we might see him play at the end of Alan's turn here, which will proliferate, get us into the 3 poison counters that we need there. And gonna have a lot of toxic creatures to attack with on the next turn here. And there's another Rot Priest in that pile, which looks like Jesse did put into hand. This could get out of control so quickly.
Yeah, the Rot Priests do scale with each other. And so, the Serum Snare, I believe, can target your own things as well. So Jesse might end up playing this Rod Priest, attack for a couple toxic, and then when Alan goes to clear the board, he might just bounce it to his hand and get an extra damage in there. Might also just hold the board as is. Kind of depends on how Jesse wants to play it. And he's in a prime position to sort of play however he wants, because Alan did have something like Aftermath Analyst early to stymie the aggression and or ramp him ahead.
Yeah, I mean, already having Alan at 6, that's just so powerful. And
yeah,
gonna see him think about it here.
Yeah, looks like Jesse's losing a life from the Atticar waste. Probably means a Serum Snare or something is coming down.
Yeah. And looks like we're just Serum Snaring the... Oh, we're playing 2 Serum Snares, which is going to have the Rot Priest trigger twice. We're going to proliferate twice. That's going to be enough to take it. What a lightning fast blink if you miss it game 1. Congratulations to Jesse, but holy cow! I mean, what do we do for game 2? How does Jesse prepare to do that again?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily this is kind of a matchup Jesse likes. So he's kind of, I don't want to say pre-boarded, but he's really happy to run into this. If Jesse could pick a matchup, this would be one of the ones he'd like to play a lot of during the day. We're probably going to see Doorkeeper Thrall come in from the sideboard. This is a way to, artifacts and creatures entering the battlefield, it causes abilities not to trigger. That's going to make Aftermath Analyst not a problem. I don't know if he wants all of them like you might in another matchup, but we're probably going to see a couple of those come in, and we're probably going to see Bring the Ending as well. This is that conditional counterspell for the Toxic deck. It makes them pay 2, but if you're Corrupted, which we saw how easy it is for Jesse to do in this matchup, it's just a hard counterspell for 2 mana. So we're probably going to see those come in. We could maybe see something like Blighted Contaminator, or Bloated Contaminator, excuse me, if you think you have enough dead cards in your main deck, but I really doubt that.
Yeah, and so taking a look at Alan's list now, what can he possibly do to, kind of stop the bleeding a bit?
Yeah, so cards like Vampire's Vengeance is something he's going to immediately bring in. It's only a 1-of, but it does deal 2 damage to everything. Coming down a turn sooner than Ill-Timed Explosion, we still have the problem of the sticky damage, but coming down a turn sooner on the play might be enough that we can stabilize, especially if we have something like an Aftermath Analyst early. We might see things like a couple Pick Your Poisons come in as a way to, answer those Doorkeeper Thralls that have flying, or answer the Strel Tides like we saw there. I could also see a Braid coming in as just a kill spell. That might be something that we want. And then, maybe like a negate if you're a little worried about these non-creature threats from Jesse here. But I think that might be a little much. I could totally see Alan doing some combination of these. And that's one of the things I really love about this Temur Analyst deck. You can sort of sculpt a lot of different game plans and play them the way you want. You have so much mana and access to so many different types of cards with this deck. So that's why we see really strong players like champion Alan Wu here selecting this deck for this weekend. And, for the most part, being heavily rewarded. Maybe this round we're going to take a second L, but there's still a lot of games left to be played. And that was, Jesse's better-ish draws. If he has kind of a clunkier draw that's slower in game 2, he might end up losing to Alan.
Yeah, well, game 2 is ready, so let's go ahead and jump right down in there and see how this goes down. Now, this time we will have Alan on the play as we're taking a look at our players' hands here. Looks like definitely not as lightning fast as an opener from Jesse, as we are seeing Alan start with the Broker's Hideout, find a forest, go up on life, and Jesse has no turn 1 play.
This is also one of the things that I didn't really mention in sideboarding, but Jesse doesn't want to sideboard a ton because then you just lose access to your normal game plan. So this is a thing where Jesse took a mulligan, maybe has, sideboarded out some of the cards that are earlier plays in order to facilitate these cards, and is now getting low-key punished.
Yeah, and for Alan on turn 2, we're going to see this Shigeki come down. But for Jesse, we're going to once again have a turn 2 Hive, which, again, very powerful turn 2 play for him.
Yeah, and can't quite make out Alan's hand. I do see he has a land, so we're not going to miss on that. Shigeki also has this weird ability where you mill some cards and put a land into play. So it is also a ramp spell as long as it's late game engine. And that's one of the nice parts about this card in your deck is it plays double service as, basically a knockoff Aftermath Analyst in the early game and then this unbeatable card in value matchups in the late game.
Yeah, and we're seeing Alan think quite a bit on this play here. Looks like we are going to see a Maestro's Theater come down for Alan as he gets gonna get another land, this time an island. And looks like it's just going to pass. Of course, the tap ability from Shigeki is online, is able to be activated.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I imagine Alan will do something like that unless maybe he has some interactive spell and Jesse plays, a like high impact threat that he wants to answer immediately. But getting ahead on mana is a big part of the game plan for Alan.
Whoa, second Skrelv's Hive. This is going to get out of control so fast with Jesse making 2 mites per turn.
Yeah, this is a problem. We talked about like maybe, we hit no lands. Talk about problems, Niall.
Whoa, that is unfortunate for Alan.
Yeah, the Shigeki in hand too, it returns things from the graveyard. So even hitting one land there would have been so nice to pick up one of those spells you hit, but Alan basically just milled over some of the cards he really wants and does have access to them now, but not without being incredibly mana intensive.
Yeah, and I think I saw an analyst in hand for Alan. Not sure what else he's working with. If there's an analyst, the Shigeki that of course we know about, a fires, and a couple lands. So it looks like Animist will be the play. We're going to mill the 3.
Okay, so good news, bad news, Niall. We milled our Vampire's Vengeance, which is our one of. Good news, we can return non-legendary cards from our graveyard with Shigeki. So if we have time, we will have access to do that again. Not as good as drawing it and getting the first activation and running it back, but does mean Alan has, access to another strong card here that could help stabilize.
Right, and we're going to see the Get Lost on the Analyst. Things just not going great for Alan here.
I like this from Jesse. The Get Lost the Analyst was representing jumping Alan up to 7 mana minimum, assuming Alan didn't have another one of those lands in hand to play that he could get back. So just trying to clear the way, keep Alan from really setting up and keep the pressure on him. We have no toxic right now. We do have 2 Skrelv Hives, which means every turn we're producing real threats, but
there's
Alan
nothing to proliferate.
Yep.
Now, I do want to point out that there is one Vampire's Vengeance in the sideboard for Alan, but he also does have one main deck.
Oh, I missed the one in the main deck. Excuse me. Yeah, so we do have a second out. Okay.
Assuming he brought the other one in, there could be another one at any time. But it looks like on the top of the library right now, we are going to have the Ill-Timed Explosion, which could be pretty nice here. But it looks like we are going to see a Serum Snare.
I believe that was the draw a card prologue to Phyresis.
Oh, sure. You're right.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird burn spell. It gives everyone 1 toxic and then you draw a card. It's actually a great way in these matchups to sort of get that first point of toxic so you can start proliferating or, burn your opponent out, right? In a lot of ways, that card reads shock, you draw a card.
Yeah.
We don't see a ton of it because these decks are so mana efficient, but Jesse playing 1 and coming in really clutch here.
Yeah, and now we're seeing the Serum Snare, which is able to proliferate the poison counter from the prologue. And now these 2 mites can just get Alan up to 4 poison. Jeansy is corrupted. Which means Jesse is just representing a hard counter spell at any time.
Yep. And now those mites have lifelink as well. So might actually, Alan could have had a line where like maybe I can keep the there comes the bring me into the hard counter.
Brutal. As we attempt the ill-timed explosion. But ill-timed it was into that counter spell, and then Shigeki hits the board again. But now there's just so many mites on board.
Yeah, and they all have lifelink too. So before Alan could have maybe done like a kind of a weird dance where he keeps the mites from getting to lifelink, and then eventually doesn't need a fireball for as much to kill Jesse. But now they're getting in. So while the actual damage part of them typically doesn't matter very much in this matchup, it does matter for the life gain, making it harder for Alan to actually kill Jesse.
Right. And thanks to the seed core and Alan being corrupted, we are able to pump up the might that Shigeki blocks to deal with Shigeki, and just everything's coming up Jesse right now.
Yeah, and we're seeing why this matchup can be so tough. When things like the Scrub Hive stick early, it is hard for Alan. And that's why I mentioned cards like Pick Your Poisons. We see Alan actually concede. He knows he can't get out of it.
That is game. Wow, what a just lightning, just so fast of a match there. Congratulations to Jesse. That was incredible. I mean, so quickly do those creatures come down, and he just, I think the really critical turn there is when he got the poison counter onto Alan, made sure to get him corrupted and just had the counter spell ready at the perfect time. Very well played.
Yep, did a very good job of knowing his role. Kept a hand we talked about, right? Didn't have anything on turn one, but had the cards that kind of mattered, played it well, and did things also like get lossing early, not wanting to save that for maybe like some big creature like you might be worried about later. It was like, no, I need to do this. I need to keep this game plan going if I'm going to win, and did it. And now moves on to X and 1 with only a couple rounds left. Very live for the top 8, very live for the Pro Tour.
Absolutely, extremely live. Congratulations, very well played by both players. We're going to have our backup feature for this round here in just a minute. We're just going to take a quick break. Stay tuned.